Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I am your host, Brian Scott. Wanted to spend an episode talking about energy. All the universe is energy. I was just reading about Einstein the other day, and it's interesting, although he had come to realize that there were holes in his theory of relativity at the end of his life, Einstein was convinced of one thing. The universe is composed of energy, and that there seemed to be an intelligence at work orchestrating this energy into one continuous cosmic symphony. Controlling our universal orchestra is a mystical conductor. Nothing happens by accident. Every one of us is born to a purpose, and every moment we live contributes to that cosmic masterwork. The future is known. Humanity is shaping it to be what has already been decreed. As Shakespeare said in As You Like It, all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. Thought is energy, and energy follows thought. The universe is thought, and thoughts are subtle vibrations permeating everything. These energies exist across many parallel dimensions and planes of being which have their own laws, but which sometimes overlap with ours. In fact, we are all living in an invisible, resonating soup of vibrations that shade into one another like the electromagnetic spectrum. Our daily lives tend to be limited to a narrow part of that bandwidth. Tunnel vision in a landscape of unbelievable color and excitement. Our ability to tune in to these frequencies is limited only by our skepticism and our mental bunkers, which, while keeping us locked safely away from unwanted intrusion, stops us from fulfilling our true destiny. The key to tapping into these energies lies in our mind, which is a powerful transmitting and receiving system reaching out into the infinite. This is an analogy that we need to accept for the time being in order to better understand the theories that will unfold as we journey together. What we create in our minds becomes an energy reality from that moment on, and has the ability to take on a life of its own, affecting the world around it for good or evil. Whatever your mind gives out will join similar energies gathering like clouds, jostling for ascendancy. We live in exciting times. Never before has there been an era when baffling, anomalous happenings and the disciplined world of science have so come close to merging. By their very nature, scientists need to have proof. Unless something can be captured, measured, manipulated, and controlled in laboratory conditions, the scientific community will not admit that it exists. The universe is full of forces that are invisible, but some are measurable. These forces have a discernible effect on the world around us, and scientists are content to admit as much, so long as they have proof. In the electromagnetic spectrum, for instance, there are frequencies that carry radio and television transmissions. There are microwaves, far infrared, visible light, ultraviolet light, X-rays, and from thousands of light years away, gamma rays. Then there are the elusive neutrinos. These are the tiny energetic particles with neither mass nor electric charge, which originate from the far reaches of the cosmos. Apparently 100 trillion neutrinos pass through our bodies every second. Some even penetrate giant clouds of interstellar gas and dust and travel on through the Earth without leaving a trace. Some scientists believe that the lower energy neutrinos may comprise a large proportion of the mass in the universe. And we must not forget dark matter, that invisible, mysterious collection of something that holds the universe together. It's another of those insoluble aspects of astrophysics that cosmologists have confined to the too difficult tray in their labs. They know it exists because its gravity bends the light of stars and galaxies as they hurtle on their way. Dark matter makes up about 90% of the universe and seems to have a force that holds everything in place, rather like a fly is held in amber. But pushing everything apart is its opposite number, dark energy, a mysterious force that again no one understands. In his so-called cosmological constant, Einstein included such an anti-gravity effect in his theory of general relativity. But while everyone went along with the theory, no one, including Einstein himself, took it very seriously. Now it's popped up, thumbing its nose and saying it's here to stay whether we like it or not, causing quite an upset for astronomers who have to adjust to an unexpected and outlandish new view of the universe. I'm as big a fan of dark matter and dark energy as anybody else, says astronomer Richard Ellis of Caltech, but he adds, I find it very worrying that you have a universe where there are three constituents of which only one, ordinary matter, is really physically understood. And coexisting with both dark matter and dark energy is the zero-point field, the source of limitless and inconceivable amounts of energy. One cupful, say the scientists, would contain enough energy to boil away every ocean of the world. Exactly what is zero-point fields? It is standard in quantum theory to apply something called the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, which basically says that while you can measure the position at any one time of a subatomic particle, like an electron, you cannot at the same time measure its speed. This is because it jiggles about all the time. The same applies to electric and magnetic fields, which oscillate as they flow through space. At every possible frequency, there will always be some electromagnetic jiggling going on, and if you add up all these ceaseless fluctuations, what you get is a background sea of light, whose total energy is enormous, the zero-point field. The zero point refers to the fact that even though this energy is huge, it is the lowest possible energy state. All other energy is over and above the zero-point state. Take any volume of space and take away everything else. In other words, create a vacuum, and what you are left with is the zero-point field. We can imagine a true vacuum devoid of everything, but the real-world quantum vacuum is permeated by the zero-point field with its ceaseless electromagnetic jumpings and jerkings. At this point, you're beginning to get the message that, whatever you might like to call it, there is a ceaseless activity of invisible energies churning on around us, wherever we are. And this ceaseless churning is also happening on the other side of the universe, billions of light years away. And this concoction of frequencies is what makes up our cosmogenic energy. No measurement instrument has yet been invented that can define its properties, but nevertheless, the evidence is there, even though it cannot yet be confirmed in the laboratory. But our minds know it is there, and both consciously and unconsciously we utilize its forces. In fact, systems theorist Ervin Laszlo, who I interviewed on the channel, says the zero-point field is actually the storage facility for all our memories, and that the mind is merely a retrieval and readout mechanism linked to it. This is a scientist's version of the Buddhist belief that everything that has happened and will happen is recorded in an invisible cosmic library. This was later adopted by the founder of Theosophy movement, Rudolf Steiner. The evidence for a force or forces out there is all around us and has been since the beginning of time. Now at last, with the advent of the quantum universe, scientists are reluctantly having to accept phenomena that up to the 20th century would have been ridiculed and relegated to the world of magicians and alchemists. The manifestations of the quantum world are out of this world. Those of us for whom the quantum realm is the stuff of frizzy-haired geniuses can take heart. Frizzy-haired geniuses don't know what's going on either. But something remarkable is happening, the greater understanding of which could change human destiny, and you are a part of it. Incidentally, the word quanta in connection with physics was first coined by Max Planck, who proposed that energy might come in discrete bytes or quanta. For example, atoms of light or photons are quanta. Quantum physics has turned conventional thinking on its head, has baffled Einstein, and has created the possibility of a linkage between quantum events and the human mind. Yes, the microscopic worlds of subatomic particles and psychic phenomenon are converging. Physics began as a science when Isaac Newton and others discovered that mathematics could accurately describe the observed world. Today, the Newtonian view of physics is referred to as classical physics. In essence, classical physics is a mathematical confirmation of common sense. It makes four basic assumptions about the fabric of reality that correspond more or less to how the world appears to our senses. These assumptions are reality, locality, causality, and continuity. Reality means that irrespective of whether we can see and feel it, the physical world is objectively real and there anyway. Locality refers to the idea that objects need a physical influence to make them move. Causality follows on from this and states that a cause will be followed by an effect. You fire a gun and the bullet will leave the muzzle. Continuity assumes that time moves forward smoothly and in one direction. Classical physics is common sense physics, a clockwork billiard ball universe that we can readily understand. Quantum physics is Alice through the looking glass. In this world, reality can be two places at once. Locality can be pushed by an invisible hand. Causality arranges for the bullet to arrive before the gun is fired, and continuity jumps dizzyingly back and forth in time and space. Back to Heisenberg and the uncertainty principle. Way back in 1927, he said of subatomic particles like the electron, the more precisely the position is determined, the less precisely the momentum is known in this instant, and vice versa. This became known as the uncertainty principle, and its acceptance by the scientific community meant the acceptance of the seemingly magical world of quantum mechanics. As in a quantum mechanical world, you cannot predict where a particle will be with 100% certainty. Physicists speak in terms of probabilities. For example, you can calculate that an atom will be at some location with a 99% probability, but there will be a 1% possibility it will be somewhere else, even across the other side of the universe. These particles can appear in places where they have no right to be as far as classical physics is concerned. And this weird behavior of the subatomic realm deeply offended Albert Einstein. While Einstein had proved that at 186 miles per second, light is the fastest thing in the universe, he became distinctly uneasy at the action at a distance evidenced in so-called quantum entanglement, where unbelievably two particles separated by vast distances could affect one another in an instant with no time lag for travel. For example, orders changing the polarity of one entangled particle would somehow be communicated to the other at a speed apparently faster than light. Einstein couldn't accept this, or the other uncertainties introduced by quantum theory. God does not play dice with the universe, he famously wrote to his friend and physicist Max Born. Oh yes, he does, Stephen Hawking would say. On the contrary, it appears that not only does God play dice, but also that he sometimes throws the dice where they can't be seen. Now, I don't want to fall into a trap where I start talking about a bunch of different things about quantum physics. But one of the most fundamental pieces of research that has thrown die-hard classical scientists into disarray is the double slit experiment. We've talked about this before. The double slit experiment is where light is shown at a screen with two parallel slits cut in it. This causes an outline of light and dark strips to be formed on another screen behind. These strips of light and dark are called an interference pattern, caused by light spreading out from the two slits in a series of overlapping waves. However, when photons or single particles of light are fired at the slits, there should be no pattern as there are no waves to interfere with each other, but inexplicably, there is still an interference pattern reflected on the wall. How can this be when there are no waves to overlap? Experimenters concluded that single photons seemed to be able to go through two slits at the same time, and this meant that each particle has a ghostly twin in another universe mimicking its every move. Even more incredibly, it also seems as if the photons can read the experimenters' minds, because as each single photon is fired, the interference effect builds up on the screen according to a pattern anticipated by the human watchers. Also, scientists found that the particles seem to know that they are being watched and adjusted their behavior accordingly. When physicists tested for the presence of particles, they got particles. When they tested for light waves, they got waves. It seems that the test itself tried to oblige the humans involved by determining a result they desired, which is utterly alien to classical physics. Confirming that there seems to be an apparent intelligence at work, the particles become overtly coy when the experiment is taken on a stage. When the experimenters set up a detector to measure which slit each particle goes through, the photons refused to behave like waves and remained as particles, creating one spot on the screen as one might expect. As soon as the detector is switched off, the particles resume behaving like waves, creating an interference pattern. Now, I know you may know that. This is something a lot of people like to mention when they talk about the mind and the universe, but it's important to understand the energy that we're interacting with is controlled and affected by our observation and the mind. According to American physicist Richard Feynman, who Neville Goddard loved to talk about, the unexplained behavior of photons and electrons applies to all subatomic particles, and the double-slit experiment goes to the core of the quantum mystery. A further refinement of the experiment takes us into the realms of the profound and provides the basis for answers to metaphysical questions like, what is life for? Why are we here? If there is a God, and why does he allow suffering? This refinement of the experiment is known as delayed choice. Here, a detector is set up between the two screens to monitor the particular route a particle is taking after it has passed through the slits, but before it hits the screen. Remember, if the particle thinks it is being monitored, it remains a photon, resulting in a blob of light on the screen. However, if it is not being monitored, it is quite happy to behave like a wave and go through two slits at the same time. By setting up the monitor between the screens, theoretically, it will be too late for the particle to detect whether it is a photon or a wave, as it will already have made the choice and gone through the slit. Amazingly though, when the monitor is switched on, the particle remains a particle, and when switched off, the particle behaves like a wave and creates a typical interference pattern. This means that the photon already knows what the mode the monitor will be in before it passes through the slit. These experiments were conducted independently of each other by the University of Maryland in the US, the University of Munich in Germany. So the quantum universe has thrown up paradoxes and weirdness that rival anything that the world of the paranormal can manage. Some scientists try to explain it by suggesting that there could be an infinite number of realities which exist alongside our own. Every choice of life is made within these other realities, and our lives progress according to our choices, which creates our reality. So you might marry, have children, and divorce in this life, whereas in the universe next door, you might remain single, and in the parallel world next to you, you might die as a child. The universe is a seething mass of probabilities, and only human consciousness can conjure any of those probabilities into reality. And part of our consciousness that exists outside of ourselves, the mind, pursues at a quantum level the choices we did not make, giving part of us an existence in all the other parallel worlds in which the infinite number of options are being played out. Whether you go along with this theory or not, it is another pointer to our minds and thoughts having powerful effects on the world and the worlds about us. Some philosophers believe that our human consciousness actually influences quantum events, which could be argued is a logical extension of the delayed choice result. This mind over matter idea is the basis of Danish physicist Niels Bohr's Copenhagen interpretation that there is no meaning to the objective existence of a quantum particle unless it is observed. Until you see it, it isn't there. He used to say that if people did not find what he was telling them absolutely amazing, they were not taking it in. The nothing exists until it is observed theory is illustrated by the famous or infamous so-called Schrodinger's cat experiment proposed by Erwin Schrödinger to demonstrate something called the quantum theory of superposition. Schrödinger's cat demonstrates the apparent conflict between what quantum theory tells us is true about the nature and behavior of matter on the microscopic level and what we can see to be true about the nature and behavior of matter on the macroscopic level. Schrödinger, who later in life confessed he wished he'd never met the damned cat, said that if you place a theoretical cat in a thick lead box, subsequent events would clearly show what he meant by superposition of states. When the cat goes into the box, it is perfectly healthy. However, in with it you place a cyanide capsule, which will break at the slightest touch. From then on, we don't know if the cat is alive or if it has broken the vial and died. Since we don't know, the cat is in superposition of being both dead and alive at the same time. It is only when we break open the box and learn the condition of the cat that the superposition is lost and the cat becomes either dead or alive. With our double slit experiment, we know that superposition actually occurs at the subatomic level because there are observable effects of interference in which a single particle is demonstrated to be in multiple locations simultaneously. But in the reality we see around us, can the cat be both dead and alive? When and how does the model of many microscopic possibilities resolve itself into a particular macroscopic state? That is the measurement problem, and Schrodinger's cat is a simple and elegant explanation of that problem. Our frizzy-haired scientists admit that this is still one of the stickiest areas of quantum physics. The American philosopher Dana Zohar, wife of British psychiatrist Ian Marshall, believes that consciousness is the bridge between classical physics and the quantum world. She believes our consciousness makes us co-creators of the universe we're part of. That's what I believe. That's what I've tried to establish. Multiple episodes. This is also the belief of John Wheeler, a towering figure in the world of theoretical physics. This concept is used by doctors in a Beijing medicineless hospital. Western medics witnessed a cancerous growth just dissolve before their eyes. Doctors working in the hospital explained they didn't judge the cancer good or bad. It was just a quantum possibility of which there were many, and this was just one of them. They explained that having acknowledged this fact, they would decide to choose another one. Unlike their conventional colleagues who were trained to manipulate the cancer, these quantum doctors use their minds to change the quantum blueprint of the patient, allowing their feelings to observe another possibility had occurred which replaced the cancer. In this procedure, they had accessed the realm in which all possibilities exist simultaneously and had made a different choice. This realm, where all possibilities exist simultaneously, has been referred to as the quantum field. In transurfing, it's the space of variations. Ancient cultures which knew nothing about the quantum world would do exactly the same thing by reaching into these possibilities with their minds and choosing one. One of quantum mechanics' shortcomings is that it doesn't truly explain how reality emerges from the quantum world of elementary particles and probability waves. Zohar believes that the answer has always been in the theory, and that we should simply take it at face value. She subscribed to the thesis of Bose-Einstein condensation advocated by Ian Marshall, which basically equates mind-body duality to wave-particle duality. She believes that the self does change all the time, quantum interference making each new self sprout from the old selves. In her groundbreaking book, The Quantum Self, she substitutes the saga of Schrodinger's cat for the fortunes of a cosmic hussy who experiences all the possible paths that a young girl might take from virginity to wedded bliss. Her heroine selects simultaneously all of her possible suitors and lives out her life with each one, marrying, having children and grandchildren, before settling on one partner. Thus she demonstrates the parallel selves we all are, one of which happens to be the life we recognize as now. However, our other selves have significantly influenced out there. Zohar proposes that the mind is relationship and matter is that which it relates. Neither on its own could evolve or express anything. Together they give us ourselves and the world. She said, I discovered quantum physics at 15 and it stood my whole world on end. The ways things based in Newtonian physics differ from those based in quantum physics paradigm has been the whole substance of my work and runs through it completely. Quantum systems are thought to be concretized balls of energy that take on different forms as they relate to each other through participating in the system together. When two quantum systems meet, they overlap and combine their total identity. All the patterns of dynamic energy within these systems change dramatically in relation to each other, leading to the emergence of a whole new thing that is greater than the sum of its parts. But how about a different theory? Could it be that cosmic consciousness, or the universal mind, or whatever you want to call some kind of overarching intelligence that we've discussed in the past, already knows what human consciousness is to bring into being in the future, as it has already brought into being the past and the present? So in a sense, the past, present, and future already exists because the knowing has created it. This chimes in with the quantum universe's propensity to have an effect before the cause. The future is already there because it is known, but it is yet to be conjured up. And that is why particles know when they are being watched. Whether they are to form a pattern on a screen or not is already known. So they are not reading the scientists' minds. Rather, they are behaving as they are obliged to behave to fulfill their part in the future. What all this boils down to is this question: are we just puppets playing out our lives according to a script already written? What about free will? The scientist's decision whether or not to monitor the particles is still a matter of free choice, but the outcome is already in place in the universal mind's knowledge of the future. In anticipation of their decisions, both the scientists and the particles are participating in a grand cosmic drama, which is unfolding as directed by the universal consciousness. That is why the light waves from a star can know what would be in the scientist's mind millions of light years in the future. The result is already in place, effect, but the choice cause has yet to be made. Mankind is living out its destiny, complying with a meticulously created, ghostly scenario known already to the universal mind, but yet to be brought to life. The birth and death of universe stretching across millions of light years and encompassing billions of galaxies is following the same principle. Energies, frequencies, resonances have created events, and now the human race is adding to its contribution. This concept is awesome. If the feeling of individual insignificance when looking up on a starry night is overwhelming, remember that even the most humble of human lives is making a significant contribution to an eternal celestial act of creation. Yes, you, sitting there right now, wondering whether anyone cares, and you couldn't blame them if they don't because you're worthless anyway. No, you are definitely not worthless. You are essential for completion of the master plan, of which we humble humans can only see a fraction. No, you don't need to get out of bed and do good works. No, you don't have to hold the fate of nations in your hands. You are important just by being you. We must understand that we are creative, eternal beings creating physical experience, joined at the level of existence of consciousness. When we understand this, we start to see and create this world that we live in quite differently. There is a universal interconnectedness, and it's exciting and liberating. There is, after all, a meaning to everything. There is a destiny that is unfolding, and we are a part of it. Each individual is a fundamental concept of a grand plan. While we retain our free will and must make our own choice, the future we are shaping is a future that is already there. What does this mean to you? You must understand that the physical matter that is all around you is energy. All of the universe is energy. You are an interacting energy field, and your consciousness is changing it, creating realities, and you exist within a field of unlimited possibilities, and you are unfolding the universe with every thought, every action. It is you that is creating the universe. It is you that is shaping it and changing it, and you are interacting with these energies. It is you. You are the one that is changing it. You are the one that is creating it. We are all individual forms of energy, and as such, we are indestructible. Energy never dies. Our bodies may die, but that eternal part of ourselves, our spirits, has a role to play in whatever dimension they are at that exist outside of this one. Our time on this plane gives us each an opportunity to experience good and bad, positive and negative, and think thoughts, make decisions, and take actions according to our circumstances. Every moment that passes has an effect on that eternal part of ourselves, which will have a bearing on what part we play in the future in this cosmic drama. I am sending all the positive energy to you. Hopefully it can transform your day. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com, and welcome to The Reality Revolution.